You don't have to repeat the past. You can heal, break generational cycles, and parent differently. Welcome back. I'm Promise Israel, and on this podcast, we talk about everything, but today we're talking about breaking generational cycles and parenting differently. Let's dive right in. I remember a time in my life where I was just like super lost, super negative. My heart posture was bad, my attitude was bad, how I looked at life was just bad. What are generational cycles? Generational cycles are negative patterns passed down in families. That could be toxic communication, emotional neglect, having a poverty mindset, lack of affection, and it's so many more things that can come with generational cycles, negative generational cycles. Some examples, let's just say your parents used to yell at you versus just talking to you, communicating with you. And parents, I know a lot of times you think that yelling and talking in a very aggressive way is the way to go, but sometimes that's more detrimental than you really know. Or what if your family avoided showing emotions, avoided expressing and having emotions? I know within my family, I never saw people cry, even at funerals. Ain't no one in my family really cries. It doesn't seem like anyone is hurt about this person passing away. So I didn't know if it was a safe space for me to feel in certain instances when I was hurt or felt heartbroken, or just all of the little things that you feel, not just as a kid, but as a human. Do you have a safe space within your family where you can be emotional if you need to be, or if you have to be? A lot of times a lot of us come from families where no one really knew how to apologize. So now you're an adult and you don't know how to admit when you're wrong. Those are just a few examples of negative generational patterns that are just constantly passed down within families. And we really don't pay it any attention because it's just normalized. Not saying you're sorry, not really crying and expressing your emotions, not being able to express how you feel in a healthy way through communicating in a soft, non-aggressive way. Those things have been normalized. So when you think about your family dynamic, where exactly do you stand within your family? Are y'all heavily flawed in areas where you could be the person to make the difference? You could be the first person in your family to start saying I love you before you hang up the phone. Or you could be the first person in your family to just start saying, hey, I apologize for that. That hurt your feelings. Or I didn't mean what I said by that, but I do want you to know that your feelings matter to me. I do apologize. You can just be the person in the family instead of yelling, instead of fussing and fighting. You could just approach certain hostile situations with a very calm tone. You could be the difference maker. But being all of that takes courage. And a lot of times you're upset at your parents because all of this is about parenting. This series was about parenting. We've talked about honoring your parents, healing childhood wounds, rebuilding relationships, and now we're talking about those generational cycles that we are now aware of or unaware of. And now we're adult children with children or hoping to have children one day, and we want to break those cycles before we become a parent, or go ahead and change some things now that we are a parent. Everything is about sowing good seeds. So coming from a family where negative patterns exist, and we all have family members, and we all probably come from a family like that. Let's just be real. No family is perfect. No family is flawless. We're all born into sin. So, hey, that's just the case for 90% of the people in the world. If that is your case, you need to think about in Exodus 34, it talks about how sin is passed through generations, but God also offers redemption. So, like I said, you could be the one to turn that thing around. You could be the difference maker. You could be the person to just change the dynamic of the family. But in order to change it, you have to admit that something is wrong. And you also have to admit it's not outside sources. Your family is not the reason you are where you are right now as an adult. And I get we've all experienced trauma. I get we've all just experienced things that we feel are the reason we are in the position that we're in. But at the end of the day, when you become an adult, you are responsible for your outcome. So you can't go into this situation of thinking you're going to be the difference maker in the family, but you can only see flaws in everyone outside of yourself. If this is happening within your family, if not being able to apologize is something that happens repetitively in your family, 9 times out of 10, you also struggle with that. You get what I'm saying? So don't think that you're just so special right now and you're going to make the difference, but, oh, it's nothing wrong with me. It's something wrong with everyone around me. No, that's not what healing is about. And that's not what any of this is about. How can you break those cycles? Number one, remember you can't fix what you won't face. So if you don't admit it, you can't even help the situation, big dog. It's so far out of your reach because you're in delusional land. You don't think these things are wrong with you, but we already talked about that. When I started realizing it was something strange going on within my family, I've always been a big journal advocate. My mom, she promoted journaling and everything when I was growing up. She always bought me journals. And I went back to just journaling. Sometimes you need to sit down and write out your thoughts about your family. And then write out the actual facts about your family. How do you know they're facts? Because you've seen these people do this. You got to jot down notes and I don't like none of that. Just keep going. Once you get an overview and get a idea of your family and your family dynamic, look yourself in the mirror. Ask yourself this one question. Am I like this? Do I do any of these things right now currently in my life? And if the answer is yes, you got some work to do. If the answer is no, you need to make sure you're focusing on leading by example because someone is watching. And if it's not your children, it's someone else's children. And you need to understand when you become an adult, you have to act like an adult. You have to really represent yourself. You should represent yourself in a good way because we are the future. I'm in my 20s and I am the future. I'm already in the future. People are already depending on me to make a difference in their life. And so the older you get, the more you have to realize your responsibility grows. So you don't want to be a 50-year-old still operating like a 20-year-old. You don't want to be thinking like that. You don't want to be so angry and so hurt because you haven't healed from your childhood and you haven't identified those generational cycles that live within your family, that you're so naive and you're so lost in the sauce that now you're creating your own family. You have your own kids and spouse and you're doing the same thing the folks in your family did. Let me ask you a question. How many times right now as an adult, how many things do you do that you said you will never do based off of seeing your parents do it? Personally, we've all fallen victim to that statement. I never be like that. I never do that. I never. You saying that prematurely because as soon as life get to life and you doing right what you said you wouldn't do. And if that's where you are and you're probably right there, you're probably right in that pocket that I'm talking about. The person who say they wasn't going to do certain stuff. Now you out here doing certain stuff and you think everybody judging you. But the reality of it is you could be better. You could do better. You don't have to fall victim to the generational curses within your family. You don't have to fall victim to addiction, food addiction, porn, lust, drugs, alcohol. It's so many different things you could be addicted to. You don't have to fall victim to that. Just because it was something that lived within your family, you don't have to fall victim to it. What does that mean? Look, I'm not here to tell nobody what to do. If your mom and dad and them was drinking and smoking, I ain't here to tell you don't do it. I'm just here to let you know you better have some sort of self-discipline going into adulthood. And now as an adult, you need to have some self-discipline because it's a lot of stuff you said you'll never do and you're probably doing it. And where do you go from there? You just probably so lost. I remember it was a time where I wasn't talking to my parents. I really was just kind of isolated. And I was surrounding myself around people who thought like me and who acted like me. And it just wasn't a good place to be. And a lot of times you think that you're doing better than your family members because you don't see them every day and you've totally isolated yourself from people who say they love you and people who have the same blood that runs through their veins as you. But the reality of it is you really just found another family that's just as dysfunctional as your actual family. You might as well just stick with your family. And that doesn't mean stick with them in a way where it's detrimental to you and your growth. It's just don't go outside of your perimeter. Don't go outside of your immediate family to get in a circle that's just as toxic as your actual family. Everything starts with family. If you look at a person and in the relationship they have within their family, a lot of times we're just like, we got beef with everybody. And That's not a good place to be. Just being trapped in a generational cycle and also being delusional to think that you're not trapped. Parents, I can't say this enough. Adult children, I can't say this enough. If you don't heal, you'll pass down wounds instead of wisdom. Let that sink in. I repeat it. If you don't heal, you will pass down wounds instead of wisdom. Do you really want that to be you? You really want to be the person that every time you look up, it's just a trauma-filled situation. It's an overly emotional situation. You're always hurt. You're always the victim. You're always crying about things that were done to you. Do you want to be that family member? Or do you want to be the family member that, not just the family, do you want to be the mother or the father or the sister or the brother or the adult child that grows up, grows into themselves, and actually uses their pain to provide wisdom and purpose in this world? I say this in all my videos. All things are working for your good. If you're in a bad season, you really got to trust that God go use this in some sort of way. If you're in a good season, make sure you're still aware of what's going on around you, because seasons change. And you want to always be expanding in a good way. You want to be growing. You want to be pouring into others. You want your cup to be overflowing so that you can be full enough to serve others and be of service to others. Before I really got right with my mom and with my dad, I felt like I was on mute. God was not using me. He was not allowing me to even speak out and speak into others, because I wasn't even honoring my mother and my father. I was sitting around playing the blame game. I was sitting around thinking that it's everybody's fault but mine. And the minute I started just taking some accountability, or just started being a little more forgiving and understanding, I was like, God started allowing me to pour into others. He started using me. And to be used by God is a wonderful feeling, if you want me to be honest with you. So just remember, in Christ, you are a new creation. Heal from that old stuff. Because if not, you go pass down wounds instead of wisdom. One day you might have some kids. You probably already got kids. Do you want to be unknowingly, indirectly, and directly passing down trauma, passing down weird stuff, passing down a poverty-stricken mindset? I don't think you do. I know I don't. Here's the thing, because I said part of the video was going to be about learning how to parent differently. And what you need to understand about being an adult child. I'm an adult child without any children. One day, if it's in God's will, of course, I want to be used as a vessel to bring life into the world. But I also want to be ready, and I want to be healed, and I want to be grounded in God. So if you don't have children right now, a few things you could do. And I hate hearing people say, "There's no book on parenting. There's no book on parenting." Are you slow? Are you really just that out of touch with reality that you truly think is no book on parenting? It's a million books out there where people are talking about parenting. It's a book out there that's specific to your child. And I get it. Y'all want to think that your children are just so different. I mean, yeah, they different, but not different to a point where no one else in the world has experienced something that you are experiencing now. A lot of times you're just not a good parent, and you're not going to be a good parent because you're not taking the time to educate yourself. You're not taking the time to surround yourself around healthy families. What is a healthy family? I don't know. I don't know what a healthy family is for you. I can't sit up here and pinpoint what a healthy family is, because everyone has their idea of what a healthy family is. Take some parenting courses. They're available everywhere. Okay? And you got to start sowing good seeds before you have kids. I can't necessarily say I want to have children or not, and I won't say that. I'll just say whatever God has for me, He has it for me. But I know that I have a womb, which means I have the possibility, and I was created to bring children into the world. I have something that holds a child. I'm a woman, So with that being said, don't be so caught up in your own flesh. I hear women say all the time, I don't want kids. I don't like kids. And I used to be one of those women. But when you start growing spiritually and you start really understanding, why did God allow you to be a woman? What is the purpose of being a woman? What was God's purpose of women? Then you kind of start changing your posture towards children, towards our husband, towards having a family, you change your posture towards all of that. And one thing that I enjoy it and I dislike it at the same time in my 20s is so many things you have to unlearn when you are from a very dysfunctional environment, and that's external and internal. It's a lot of things you have to unlearn and you have to relearn and you have to keep learning. That's life. Unlearn, relearn, keep learning. Unlearn, relearn, keep learning. Let's say it together. Unlearn, relearn, keep learning. The learning never stops. One of the things that I dislike about my family, I don't never hear people say they sorry or I apologize. And I'm sure a lot of people deal with that and have dealt with that. So when I was going to therapy, my therapist just encouraged me to start doing some of this stuff. You just do it, promise. If you want it done to you, you do it. And that's a biblical principle. You treat people how you want to be treated. I want people to apologize to me and admit when they're wrong, when they are wrong. I want people to be able to show their emotions and feel like it's a safe space. If something is going on in their life, I don't want people to feel how I felt just growing up and even now as an adult. So if you come from a family and your parents never apologized, okay, you be the first to do it. It's something right now you could think of right now that you probably did within the last 24 hours that someone is due an apology. Okay, are you going to step outside your comfort zone and pick up the phone and call them? Or if you're not strong enough to do that, are you going to be able to send it in a text message? Or is your pride going to get in the way? A lot of times pride is the reason why we can't restore relationships. Pride is the reason why we can't build relationships. And pride is also the reason why we can't see value in good things. You think that the world is revolving around you when in fact it's just not. You are a part of the world, but how much of a difference are you going to make with the time that you have on earth? Everyone has their own little world that they're living in. So if you come from a world of dysfunction, now that the ball is in your court, why? Because you're an adult. How are you going to cultivate a new world so that when God starts giving you people and he starts to allow you to have stewardship over people and relationships and businesses and money, how are you going to be able to take care of that stuff? Right? Parents, I want to say this, even if you break a certain cycle, you still won't get it all right. It's going to be a time where your children are disappointed, where they don't like you, you know how I go. You was a child one time at one point. So just because you broke one generational curse, don't think that you are responsible for breaking every generational curse. If it's if your family is like known for everybody drinking all day, smoking all day, having an addictive spirit, you could be the first in the family not to drink and smoke. One thing that I love about my mom, everyone around us was drinking and smoking. My mama never did that. And I know it's time when she felt like her good gestures and her good posture towards life was overlooked, but it really wasn't because I admired that. So a lot of times, parents, just try your best to not just be yourself, but be who God has called you to be. And before you start having kids, or if you've already started having children, make sure you have a relationship with God, because your relationship with God is going to help you be the best parent you could be. And still just know it might be a possibility where your children stray away, where your children decide, hey, once I turn 18, I don't want to have nothing else to do with you. And you got to just be okay with that sometimes. You have to have grace within yourself as a parent, as an adult child, as an adult. You just have to have grace within yourself. Young children, if you're watching this under the age of 18, under the age of 21, you have to have grace with your parents. One day you're going to be in a position. You might say, I'm never going to be in a position. I'm never. You really don't know what life go do. That does not have to be a bad thing. Just know you are responsible for giving yourself grace, giving others grace. Being different from your actual parents, it's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's a lot of things that I can see and I saw when I was coming up under my mother's leadership. It's a lot of things that I saw that, you know, in my opinion, she should have did something different or differently. But I was seeing it from my opinion. And it's a reason why you have your own opinion, because one day your opinion is going to matter. Because one day you're going to have kids. So just make sure you are using your resources, which is your common sense and your memory bank. If it's something that you didn't like coming up as a kid, you don't have to bring that over into your parenting journey. You know, but also get real with yourself. It's a lot of stuff that did work out for your good. You wasn't happy about it at the time when your parents did whatever they did or said whatever they said. But at the end of the day, it really made you a better person. So you got to have a healthy balance. How do we have a healthy balance? You really need to be leaning on God. You need to lean on him before you even conceive a child. And you also need to make sure you're leaning on him so that you are properly honoring your parents right now, your parents that are still alive. I still have both of my parents. I know many of you still have both of your parents. And if you don't, I do apologize about that. I'm sorry for your loss. But if you still have a living parent, the best thing you can do to be the best parent you can be, or to be the parent that you want to be, the parent that God is calling you to be, when is your time, the best thing you can do is honor your parents right now. I want to leave you with something straight out the Bible. This scripture, it really changed my life. And it's Romans 12:2 to be exact. And it talks about renewing the mind. Sometimes we're so sick in the head coming into adulthood because you got all of this stuff on you. And when I say stuff, you bringing baggage into your 20s because you're so hurt from your teens and from your childhood. That's normal. But what are you going to do now that you're an adult? Are you going to continue to wear that baggage? Are you going to continue to think the same way? Or you could take my advice and be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that's not even my advice. That's God's advice. You got to have some biblical principles in order to be the best version of yourself, in order to be just the best of who you've been called to be. Okay? I hope y'all enjoyed today, and I see y'all on the next one. Bye.
Took me a minute for me to get to know you, but I'm here, and now I'm ready.